We have the return of the prodigal gun host today. Forrest Anderson in studio with us. Haven't seen you in a few weeks. Glad to have you back.
It's been great. It's
We
starting to look like spring.
we just we just had an off-air conversation with Jack Johnson about Adidas. You are obviously a proponent of comfortable shoes,
Yes.
and you've got the hat on too today as well.
I love Adidas.
That's what everybody wanted when I was a teenager. And mom and dad would just look at us like, "Are you kidding?" Because they'd go down and my mom would buy. She bought my sneakers for gym class off a rack at the grocery store.
I was telling someone that, you don't have a growing up, I remember there was a store here called Buttrey's. It's not here anymore, and I'm dating myself completely. But I can remember getting shoes out of the bin, the big
Yeah.
bin, and they had a little piece of plastic connecting the two shoes, and instead of like my Adidas now that have three stripes, they had like four stripes. They were look kind of like Adidas, but they weren't Adidas. But those got a lot of miles. I can remember strapping those shoes on when I was a little kid, and then thinking that I could run faster because I had new shoes on. It was pretty
Yeah.
fun.
I demanded one time of my parents that I wanted shoes called Red Ball Jets, which were promoted as making you run faster,
Hmm.
which obviously I was the slowest guy in school. I tried them on and it was like it didn't make any difference whatsoever. So my parents went back to buying me the bin, as you pointed
Oh
out,
yeah.
$2 a pair or whatever
Yep.
it was.
Exactly.
You'd go through four pair in a year because the glue would come apart, and before you'd know it, within a few months, you had just nothing but a little bit of cloth holding the rubber on from the sole. Well, uh, obviously the topic is not shoes this hour. It happens to be firearms. Um, we're probably not amusing anybody, although everybody out there is saying I had the same shoes.
Yep. Exactly.
We wanted to point out Todd is away again this week. Hopes to return next week. And just a quick note too about Todd and Patriot Defense. If you'd like to actually take the next class, that's coming up on April 8th. Doesn't seem like it's that close, but you know how time flies. April 8th is the next class. Todd's next class is coming up April 8th. Telephone number if you'd like to reach Patriot Defense is 620. That's a Kansas code, by the way, because Todd spent a few years there before he decided to come home to Idaho. 620 794 6223. That's 620 794 6223. And of course, his business cards, you can pick those up over at Forest Shop in just a moment. We'll talk about that. Also, Todd's podcast is on iTunes. He's got three of these up already: iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And it's under Patriot Defense Podcast. So if you'd like to take a look at those, and he's going to have a whole series of guests and the like. Probably at some point too, you're going to be a guest on one of those shows, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Absolutely. We've talked a little bit about that. But yeah, he's got some good classes. We've been sending a lot of people his way. The 22nd of April looks like the weather's going to be straightening out. Then it should
Nice.
be a great time to shoot guns. As soon as the mud gets solid enough to stand on.
Yeah, it might take a few more days of wind. And of course, if you'd like to pick up one of those business cards, see Forrest at Washington Street Pawn.
Yeah, stop in. We've had a crazy month. We have filled the shelves. We've had two big estate uh, collections come in. So we've got everything from old 1922 Czech Mausers to Browning high powers to just a just a pile of stuff. A lot of AR-15s, AR-15 chambered in 204 Ruger for varmints. I mean, we've just got a pile of new stuff that's come through the door. So really interesting stuff.
And wanted to point out, speaking of older firearms, a big show coming up, and going to deal with a historic period in this country.
Yeah, we do a match out at the Magic Valley Practical Shooting Association, and if you haven't heard of that, it's a private range here in the Magic Valley. We do handgun shoots the first and third Saturdays of every month, and then the fourth Saturday of every month we do we'll either do a three-gun shoot or a fun shoot, and we're going to start doing the second Sunday of every month. So we're going to have a lot of shoots going out there. But this club, it's $55 a year to be a member of a private club. So you don't have to go stand out there elbow to elbow with a bunch of other people. You can take your kids out there anytime at your convenience. Gate, you get a gate access. You get access to the trailer with the targets. So you can go out there whenever you want at your convenience. Set up some targets, shoot with your family, your kids. And it's only $55 a year. But in that club on March the 26th, it's a Sunday at 10 a.m. out at our range, we're going to do a World War I and II era shoot. So all the weapons used are going to be focused around those type that were used in World War One and Two. And we've already got some cool guns. We got a lot of M1 carbines. We've got some Garands. We've got some 8 millimeter Mausers that are going to be used. We've got a Russian PPS 43, their little submachine gun. It's in semi-auto, but a clone of that will be out there. Browning high powers, 1911s. We're allowing people to use modern bolt action rifles as long as they don't have a scope on them. So let's say you have a Model 70 Winchester you bought last year, you can bring that out and use it. So
You were telling me off air that some of the people who are best known probably for from the World War II era, Audie Murphy, who won the Medal of Honor, preferred that carbine because he loved the use of it. It was so simple to use.
the carbines kind of got a bad name coming out of Korea. There was a general in Korea who said the Chinese soldiers were wearing thick wool uniforms, and then on top of that, they were getting wet, and the ice was freezing on the uniforms, and they said that the bullet couldn't penetrate those on with the 30 carbine. Well, debunker that I am, we've done that. We took a towel, got it wet, froze it, folded it over 4 times, frozen solid, shot through it. It went through the towel, and it went through 7 jugs of water after that. So that myth really boils down to in combat guys just missing their target because physics don't lie. That bullet has got plenty of
Hmm.
energy, even at 100 meters, to more than, in fact, if you do the math on that, what it takes a bullet to go through a jug of water, that bullet would actually gone through the uniform, gone through an enemy soldier, gone through another uniform, and through another enemy soldier at 100 yards. So really boils down to they were just missing their targets.
And that carbine was great for close combat. If you're in a street fight, for instance.
Yeah, it was designed for 150 yards and in. It's basically the same, ballistically similar to a 357 Magnum. It's a 110 grain bullet going about 1900 feet per second. Super light. It weighs 5 pounds. 30 round mag capacity. Was great. You can run full speed with them. They're very accurate. They don't. There's no recoil to them because they're basically a pistol cartridge. And that was issued to a lot of officers, a lot of artillery crews. Um, but it became very popular. The Garand's a very heavy gun, 30-06, tons of power. But most engagements in combat, despite what we may think, are there was a lot of soldiers who fired their gun a lot, but they said they never actually saw an enemy soldier. So if you're going to actually see a guy, lay eyes on a guy, it's probably going to be pretty close up where you're going to.
Right, artillery was for the people who were off in the distance.
Yeah, and artillery, if you look at statistics, bombing and artillery and disease killed more enemy combatants than small arms fire.
You're going to have some guns that were used by some of the other nations in the wars too, as well, Russian guns and the like.
Yeah, I've got, like I was just telling when we started the show, in my car right now, I've got two Japanese Arasakas. I've got a Type 38 6.5. I've got a Type 99 in 7.7. I've got an 8 millimeter Mauser. I've got a Italian Carcano in 6.5 by 52. I've got a Russian PPS 43 in 7.62 to 25. I've got a carbine out there. There's just going to be a ton of cool guns. And so it's an opportunity if you want to just maybe see some of these guns, to see them. If you want to bring out your old grandpa's old bolt action rifle from the war, round up some ammo and come out and shoot with us. It's going to be a 2 gun, so rifle and pistol, but I believe we're going to try to score it. If you only have a rifle, we will set up the courses so we will just time you for the rifle section, and then we will give an award out for who won the rifle class. We'll have a semi-automatic class and a bolt action class. So if you've got an old Type 98 Mauser, don't worry, you're not going to be shooting against the guys with the M1 carbines.
I saw a show just last week, and it was about the Italian army fighting in Africa, and it said even though they had a bad reputation, the host of the show pointed out that the military budget in Italy was about a tenth of what it was in Germany, but their firearms were top notch.
Yeah, their handguns were good. Honestly, the old Italian Carcano, that's curiously enough, that's what Kennedy was assassinated with. Lee Harvey Oswald used an Italian Carcano, chambered in 6.5 by 52. They're good guns. They're fast to load. They're okay, but they were by no means. Uh, they were World War that rifles developed in the late 1800s, so they weren't cutting edge firearms by any means. I just watched a thing last night about 300,000 Italian troops went to Russia to help the Russians outside of Stalingrad, and of those 300,000 men that went to Russia, 3,000 came back.
Oh,
So they did not. They weren't equipped. I mean, I don't know what you saw, but the Italian weapons were more World War I era style weapons.
and obviously they didn't spend a lot of money. We have a caller with us coming up now on 917, and we're at 49. Forrest Anderson joining us in studio this morning on Top Story. And caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Good morning, guys. I really love this show. Makes my week to hear when you guys are talking about guns. It's a passion of mine, and I think like everybody in the Magic Valley. But my father-in-law left me a gun, and it's on a Mauser Action. And on the barrel it says, Arbuckle and Snow. And then I read a little bit. It might have been made in Redding, California. It's a 22 250 on an old Mauser Action. You know anything about those?
There was a lot of that Mauser 98 action is probably one of the most common actions to build custom rifles off of. There was Arbuckle and Sons in California. I mean, there was makers all over. I just had a 25-06 made in 1960 in Pittsburgh by a custom company there. They made the stocks and everything. It was actually shipped to South Africa to a soldier who bought it while he was stationed in South Africa and brought over. It'd been around the world. But the Mauser 98 action is probably the most common, or until the Model 700 Winchester came out, was the most common gun to build. They're super strong actions, super smooth bolts, a lot of custom parts for those. Guys still build custom rifles off that action today. So I would say that rifle was probably an import. They either took a commercial or a military action. How you can tell whether it was a military rifle before it came custom, on the left side back of the receiver, there'll be a U notch where they used to use the stripper clips to load the gun. If it doesn't have the U notch cut in it, it's a commercial Mauser 98 action. If it does have a U notch cut in it, where like your thumb could fit, then it'll be a former military action.
Okay, I'll take a look-see at that and do some more research. But thanks, guys. Love the show. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank you. We've got more coming up in just a few minutes. Forrest Anderson joining us this morning. Of course, he's from Washington Street Pond, filling in for Todd Eccles today, who's away on another assignment. We're at 51. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And just a quick note, I got a very funny line here from Jack Johnson. He was listening after he was leaving the radio station, and he said what we're talking about in those old days was something called Trax sneakers, Traxx. Which apparently was a word for junk. In some language. We've got more on the way in just a few minutes. Forrest Anderson is joining us in studio. And of course, he's from Washington Street Pond, and Todd Eccles is away this week. Wanted to point out it's 9:22, and you're listening to Top Story with Bill Colley, too, as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. I just mentioned earlier the weather is going to get really, really nice over the next several days, but we're still going to have some chilly nights, which means you're likely going to have some use of that furnace for the next month or two. And if you're having issues, you need to call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric. The pros at Ramsey's will come out and they'll do the service work, get it done right, and get it done right the first time. Problem-free cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Telephone number 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Once more, that's 678-0459. Just before you got here, I had been talking with Jack Johnson about a potential, still in the early stages that this might happen, a county range, which there's a need for it, but Jack had mentioned some of the regulatory hurdles, and you echoed in the break off air something that he said earlier. The big thing is, how do you keep it clean? Because there are people out there who they want to target shoot at some object that they don't pick up when they're done.
That's one thing that there's going to be a lot of people going out. A lot of varmint hunters going to be going out and zeroing their rifle. It's a great time to remember, check your backstop. Some of these rock chucks are in pretty kind of not urban areas, but populated areas. And some of these rifles, will shoot a long ways. So
Yeah.
be sure of your backstop. There's a lot of people shooting across the canyon. Those rocks, really dangerous. Shooting a 22, shooting a pistol caliber where the bullet won't shatter on impact. You need to be really careful. And the biggest thing is be responsible. If you're going to go out and take your kids out and shoot, if you're going to go out and shoot yourself, don't drag your TV out there, shoot it, and then leave it. If you go out across the desert, there's so much of that happens. Guys will go buy targets. They'll put a stick in the ground, put a target on it, they'll shoot it, and then they'll get in their car and drive away. Pick up your target. Clean up your mess, because that is a direct reflection on all of us as firearms owners. It makes us look lazy. It makes us look irresponsible. And I don't. Someone that's not responsible enough to pick up their target and take them with them, I don't know if they're responsible enough to be carrying a gun. I mean, just do the right thing. It doesn't take that long. It took you longer to put that target up than it's going to take you to pick it up and throw it back in the back of your pickup.
It's like dealing with these people in the wintertime when you notice they don't like to scrape their windshields or brush the snow off their car. Then they go down the road and they're looking out a little tiny circle. It's the same people probably who are leaving the messes behind.
Yeah, it's just that thing. And if your kids are with you, they see that, and then they're like, "Well, we never picked our targets up when my dad took us shooting." I mean, just pass it on. If it's something you haven't done in the past, guess what? You don't have to submit any paperwork to change it. All you got to do is do it different next time. So, one of the great people that I ever knew in my life told me once. He said, "Just because you're doing the wrong things doesn't mean you can't do the right things." So it's not that hard. If you've been leaving your targets out, if you've been making a mess when you shoot, next time don't. Instant change, instant change of result. It's not rocket science. It's just not being lazy. I did want to take a little bit more about that shoot. That shoot that
Right.
we're doing with the Practical Shooting Association, Sunday, March 26th at 10 a.m. You can come into my shop, Washington Street Pawn. If you want to join that club, it's $55 a year. And the special I'm doing right now is if you come in and join the club, I'll pay $5 your entry fee. So the membership's $55. If you come in there and fill out the paperwork, it'll cost you 50. We want people shooting safely. We want people training. So come out to those shoots and you'll get a lot of good experience moving down hallways, shooting through windows. We set up walls, we set up little courses, so you'll get tons of practice moving and shooting. It's the best way to practice
It
after
may
you've
not be
taken a class like Todd's.
quite like the historical experience that those actual troops went through, but at least you'll understand how they had to train and what they had to be trained for.
Yeah, and we have some fun stuff. Like I'm drawing up a couple of stages. And in one of the stages, you'll actually be throwing an inert grenade. We'll have you against if you and you'll throw it over a wall, and if it lands in a 50-gallon drum, you get a minute off your time. If it lands in a 10-foot circle, you get 30 seconds off your time. If it lands between the two walls, you get a 30-second penalty because you just blew yourself up. On another stage, you'll actually fix a bayonet on a rifle. You'll charge and stick that bayonet into a gunny sack, and then you'll pick up your rifle and start shooting from there. So we have a lot of fun stuff, and we encourage people dress in era. Dig up that old uniform, find some old World War II OD green pants and a shirt and throw those on if you want to. It's not required, but make it fun. Have fun with it. You got an old steel pot of your grandpa's, an old helmet, throw it on and shoot with that on. It'll be a ton of fun.
I went to a reenactment at Old Fort Miles, which was a World War II fort back on the East Coast. And if you ever saw the movie The Longest Day, the Germans had the big pillboxes up on the hills. Fort Miles, we had them too on this side for coastal defenses. They had the coastal watchtowers. The guys would be up in the towers looking out for subs or ships. And they did a reenactment as if the Germans had at one point actually landed on the coast. And the Germans, the reenactors in period costumes, came up the hill, up this beach and up the hill. And then in period costumes, the Americans defended the hill, but they had the most beautiful old antique weapons. And then when it was all over with, the two armies got together and they pulled out an old German field kitchen and they ate from the German field kitchens. Our troops had they might not agree with it, but they had much better food than the Germans obviously had from what we saw with that portable German kitchen. You're going to stick around for a little while, right, this
Yeah,
morning?
absolutely.
Because I know that you got to open some doors pretty soon and get the business going. But Forrest Anderson is in studio with us this morning from Washington Street Pawn. We've got more coming up, talking, in fact, about firearms this morning. I do want to mention our friends at Waddell and Reed. If you're looking for someone to help you invest some money, uh, plan for the future might be a better way to put that. Give them a telephone call. I do want to point out, right here in Twin Falls, Idaho, Waddell and Reed has been around since 1937. It's one of the oldest firms offering mutual funds. Waddell and Reed owns and manages two, in fact, mutual fund families. These are people who know what they're doing, as evidenced by 80 years in business. What they'll do is help you build proper expectations. Waddell and Reed will help you build a plan around your needs and your goals. They'll help you manage the money, and Waddell and Reed takes planning personally. It's 9:30, and it's 49. You're listening to Top Story. Forrest Anderson is in studio with us this morning, and we're talking firearms and all things firearms. If you got a comment or question, number one about we had a great caller earlier about just asking questions about some historical firearms. Feel free to do that, or current firearms. You'd like a little advice if you're looking to buy something. Maybe you're a first time buyer, maybe you're a 50th time buyer, but Forrest is a good resource on all of that as well. We also wanted to mention training issues too. In fact, Todd Eccles is away this week from Patriot Defense, but he has a class coming up on April 8th, a training class if you're interested in taking this. This is for that enhanced carry permit, which still necessary for us because we can have concealed carry without it, but if you're going to be going out of state, in some cases you need that, right?
Yeah, and way beyond that is the legal portion of that class. If you're going to conceal carry, whether you want to go and buy the enhanced permit after you take that class or
Mhm.
not, the legal portion of that class is an eye opener. It lets you know all the things that have to happen before you're legally able to pull that weapon and defend yourself. Like if you can get away, you need to get away. Your first obligation is to get away from the threat. The the law enforcement looks at it like unless you shoot it as a last resort, which should be the case. You don't want people running out there. Somebody is your car stereo will really worth somebody's life? Is it worth? No, absolutely, it is not. Um, so the legal portion of that class is very eye opening. It's something everyone should take. If you're going to carry a gun, you need to know your legal responsibilities because if you use it in the wrong situation, you could be end up on the other side of the bars. So, yeah, Todd has classes. I think it's the 8th and the 22nd of April. Those are his classes coming up. He does such a great job. He's such a patient instructor. He's such a good man. Uh, that's really, guys like that are what we're running out of in this country. But Todd's a really good
You
guy.
see, that's the thing is that people who don't know a lot about firearms or people who live in other parts of the country, they have this perception that it's all just this wild west. But Todd's about one of the calmest people you could ever meet. So if you're looking for someone to work with you in instruction, he's not going to make fun of the way that you're doing it. He's going to set you straight, and it's going to be a patient sort of a class. And for a lot of people out there who are sometimes they'd be embarrassed because they're thinking they're going to go in and somebody's going to know more and make fun of the way they initially their grip is or something like that. That's not going to happen at Todd's class.
No, absolutely. He's a really patient instructor. The other thing is his demeanor. He's just a calm, patient person. And if you go into these classes, no matter where you take your class, if you go in with an open mind and a willingness to learn, you'll come out a better shooter as well.
Hmm.
And I don't care if you've been shooting. I had a guy come in my shop the other day. I've been shooting handguns my whole life. His grip was completely wrong. Like, and when I showed him how to grip the gun correctly, he's like, "This feels funny." I'm like, "Well, it will for a while." But he came back to me and said his shot groups had tightened up a ton, and he felt like a competent shooter now. He knew how to manipulate the gun. He knew how to pull the trigger, but his grip was so bad. There's no way he under a rapid fire situation he could be any way consistent. And he came in with an open mind, a willingness to learn, and he took it out and tested it, and just changing his grip made him a much better shooter. So go into these classes willing to learn. Go into these classes willing to listen. Go in with an open mind, and these guys are great. They'll make you a better shooter.
Wanted to mention Todd's telephone number because we always have to explain the area code. He lived for a few years in Kansas, So it's area code 620. Nobody ever changes these numbers anymore because your friends takes them 6 months
Yep.
to figure out what happened. 620-794-6223. Once again, Patriot Defense, 620-794-6223. If you give Todd a call, he can schedule you. And if not necessarily for April 8th, once that fills up, he can schedule you for a class coming up later. He also has the podcast up and going, and there are 3 episodes already. That's available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube under Patriot Defense Podcast. So if you'd like to take a look at some of there's going to be a variety of different shows he's doing, not just about training, but he's going to talk to people who make holsters. He's going to talk to people, gunsmiths and the like. That's another thing we have to keep in mind, too, is that the holster has to be able to meet your needs comfortably. And so we have people who do these custom work that they'll be able to do that for you.
Yeah, my friend Ryan Kelso at Rock Custom Holsters makes some of the nicest custom holster. Fit it right to your gun, whether you got a laser on it or a flashlight or whatever. He'll mold that holster right to whatever your setup is. Really good quality. That's what I shoot in my competition rig is one of his holsters. He's a great guy too. I mean, we try to associate ourselves with good people because the product's only half the equation. You also are they going to back it up? That's why we at Washington Street Pawn offer lifetime warranty on all the guns we sell because it's only as good as the person standing behind it, and we stand behind our stuff 100%. So, it's one of those things that is going away. It's one of those things that getting the sale done has become more important than standing behind it, and we pride ourselves on still holding to some of those old attributes.
We've got more with Forrest Anderson on the way coming up in just a few minutes. He's here from Washington Street Pawn as well. 51 right now, 940. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX at newsradio1310.com. Sitting in the studio with us this morning, Forrest Anderson. He's from Washington Street Pawn joining us. We're talking firearms today. Got about 15 minutes to go. If you've got a comment or question, too, as well, all things firearms today, feel free to give us a call at 736-0300, 736-0300. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. A little bit of a partnership going on here. If somebody takes Todd's course, bit of a benefit when they come into your store.
Yeah, we want to encourage people to get training. So part of the way that we're doing that is if you bring us your certificate of completion from Todd's class, you get an automatic 10% off anything in my store. It doesn't have to be, if you want a TV or a laptop or jewelry or something else, we'll honor it on that as well. So if you've got your gun needs met, keep in mind we've got everything from tools to jewelry to canoes, bicycles, you name it. It comes in
sometimes
there at some
even
point.
Automobiles.
Oh yeah, we've had cars and motorcycles, and I got a really cool '64 Ford pickup right now that an old original. It hasn't been messed with. It's a really cool old truck that we're gonna find a new home for. But anyway, yeah, we're really excited about this World War II shoot. We're really excited about kind of growing the Magic Valley Practical Shooting Association. That's one thing is I hate going out to the range and standing elbow to elbow with a bunch of people I don't know what their gun ethics or training is. And so this gives you an opportunity to be a member of a private club where you can go out at your convenience. And most of the time, you'll probably be the only one out there. They have 10 bermed bays to shoot. They actually have competitions the first and third Saturday of every month, the second Sunday. And we do a 3-gun that allow you to shoot your shotgun, your rifle, and your pistol, or just your rifle and your pistol every fourth Saturday of every month.
We have a caller with us. Caller, thanks for joining us. You're on the air. Go ahead. No, it's that same outer space caller from earlier, 736-0300, 736-0300. That sound generally tells me somebody got cut off, so that can happen from time to time. You can also email me at bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. I often get those calls, Forrest, or those emails after the show. People will email me questions. They could obviously just give you a call, right? I mean, at the shop.
Yeah, they can call us at Washington Street Pawn, 208-735-0012, or just stop in. We love to talk. We're open 9:30 to 6, Monday through Saturday, and we're open on Sunday generally open on Sunday from 10 to 3. Every now and again, we love our families and we love to do stuff with them. So occasionally we'll be closed on a few Sundays, but all the other days of the week we are wide open.
Caller, I think, is trying to get back through to us. Caller, you're up next. No, that caller is still having some trouble getting through. I'll let that call, if it comes back in, I'll let it go to the rollover line. And then what we can do is it just might be that particular line. So we'll do that as well. And of course, you get a lot of these messages off air, text messages and the like while you're on the program as well. Todd's phone is doing that too throughout the show. And I know people have a lot of questions. And in this day and age, we have a lot of different ways we can ask them. All right. I think our caller is with us now. Caller, you're up next. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I had a quick question about silencers made in the state of Idaho, whether or not they have to have tax stamp or not. Could you fill us in on what you know about that? Thank you.
Idaho did pass a made in Idaho law, although it holds no national credence. I have talked to the ATF about this subject on a number of occasions. Here's what's going to happen. If you have an Idaho suppressor and you do not have a tax stamp, a federal tax stamp on it, if you get caught with it, you'll go to jail for 10 years and a $250,000 fine. It's unfortunate that there's people out there selling these, and it's unfortunate that there's people out there pushing these because they are not federally legal. If you want a felony and the inability to own a firearm ever again, then buy one. If you want to be safe, then buy one through legal channels and get a tax stamp. Hopefully, we need to put some pressure on our congressmen. They have introduced the Safe Hearing Act. If that passes, that will allow you to legally own a suppressor, and all you have to do is a simple background check, like when you do a purchase firearm. It takes 5 minutes at my store.
It appears that Mike Crapo, by the way, is behind this change too. So,
Well, he introduced the bill. What are politicians? He got his day in the sun when he introduced it. He should be pushing that thing every day. At this point, that bill should be being voted on, but they're just dragging their feet on it because they're politicians. Let's not let them hold that up until the next election cycle. Call your guys today. Let's get that passed.
the president wants it passed too as well. We have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Hey, you mentioned the fact that it's a background check for that silencer. Is it with the enhanced carry, how you can just show your permit? Will that negate the background check just like on a...
If that Safe Hearing Act passes, then yes, that is true. You will still come in and fill out the paperwork. However, we will not have to call it in. But until the Safe Hearing Act passes, you still need to get passport photos, fingerprints, and submit a $200 check to get a federal tax stamp to make that suppressor legal. Let's not get confused there. That has not passed yet. So as of right now, you still need to get a background check. And you need to get your suppressors ordered and paid for now, because I will tell you, as soon as that passes, you won't be able to touch a suppressor for years because everybody in the country will be buying one.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Want to thank him for the call. Speaking of Idaho and gun legislation, a bill went through, I believe, the House this week, and it still has to pass the Senate and I believe then go on to the governor for its signature. But it looks as if there's an amendment to last year's concealed carry law, and it will allow military, because you have a lot of military who pass through Idaho, but they're not necessarily Idaho residents. It will then expand that and allow folks who are serving in the military to actually to concealed carry without a permit while they're here in the state.
Yeah, and the other thing about that, let's touch base on that. All the naysayers were saying that instantly students were going to start shooting their professors, and they were going to throw fits if they got a D and threaten everybody with a gun. I just want this to be noted. None of that has happened. People who take the time to get a concealed weapons permit are generally pretty stable, sound people. They've spent some money. Gun owners in general are, if they're legal gun owners. And let's continue that. Go take a class. Get it done right. Learn what you're doing. Be responsible. Be a proponent. Be a driving force for people saying, you know what? I know guys that own guns and carry them every day, and they're nice people and they're responsible. They're not flashing their gun around all the time. I don't even know that they're carrying it. That's the best carry situation. Buy a comfortable holster. Buy a gun that's light enough to carry, and you'll carry it every day. And don't advertise it, because you don't want to be the first target. If somebody knows you're carrying and there's a tactical situation, they're going to take the threat out first. And if they know you're the threat, then you'll be gone.
We do want to mention again, since we're down to just the last few minutes, you have an event coming up in April, which is it
March
May?
26th.
March 26th.
It's this month. It's Sunday, March 26th. We're going to be doing a World War II shoot at the Magic Valley Practical Shooting Association. You don't need to be a member of the club to shoot in this. It's $20 to shoot. We're going to have 4 stages. They're going to be set up, some fun stuff. We're going to throw a fake grenade. We're going to fix a bayonet on a rifle and make a charge. We're going to do, and you're going to be able to shoot your old vintage rifles. What weapons are okay for the shoot? Handguns and rifles used in World War II or before. If you happen to have a brand new 1911, you can absolutely shoot that, because it was, that design was 1911. If you have a Browning high power, you can shoot that. If you know of an old German P38 or Luger, you can shoot that. Rifles, any bolt action rifle with iron sights will work. Any semi-automatic rifle from that era will work. Let's say you had brand new model 70 Winchester. If it has iron sights, we're going to let you shoot it. When the semi-automatic stuff, it has to be World War II era or before. So a M1 carbine, an old SVT-40 Russian, um, uh, uh, M1 Garand, and we'll have 2 classes. We'll have a semi-automatic class and a bolt action class. And if you got a revolver, bring that. You got a brand new Smith & Wesson 686, you're going to shoot a wheel gun, we're not going to get super picky when that was made.
When we look at old movies, too often I think that they give the wrong impression about how it always seems that in the movies there are a lot more machine guns, which were a little bit more difficult and more bulky to cart around, which is why we had generally just a lot of rifles. But there was often a guy who was, especially in our units, who was one person in a unit who was designated with a BAR. And yet, not everybody was equipped with all of these things. And I think that's one of the movies have given sort of a false impression of how that worked.
Yeah, there were millions and millions of Garands out there, and there were probably for every 10 Garands produced, there was maybe one BAR. It's interesting, all the weapons out there. And I don't want to misquote this, Marines out there, David Frick, police officer, is Marine Corps. He'd chew my butt if I get this wrong, but what they like to say is the most dangerous weapon in the world is a Marine with a rifle in his hand. That's kind of what we're celebrating. My dad was in World War II. He was in the Navy. His ship took the surrenders on the islands of Ponape and Kusai. His destroyer, the USS Hyman DD-732, was hit off the coast of Okinawa by a kamikaze, almost sunk. I mean, they had a ton of action. We want to celebrate these men because they're going away. My dad's been gone for 10 years. We want to really celebrate these guys. They're going away. Sit down. If you got nothing to do, go sit down at a rest home. Find an old veteran, just talk to them. There was lots of women that served in World War II as well as nurses. My grandma, my mother just passed away, and when she was in high school, in the summers, she would go to Ogden and work in the military hospital in Ogden, and everyone contributed. Great generation, the greatest generation. We're just kind of reminiscing, celebrating those. So if you got Grandpa's old gun, if you need ammo, let's see if we can find you some ammo for it, and come shoot it. Come enjoy it.
I read this morning, it was a sad story. The co-founder of Waffle House Restaurants passed away. He was 97 years old. And he would have actually been among the older. He served in World War II. He would have been because a lot of them are generally in that 90-year range now.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys who would have been like 97, they were showing up at wartime. They were 30 years old. So that the people who actually served were from 16. A lot of guys got in at 16. They shouldn't have, but they were big guys and they lied. But from about 16 to 40, you had people who were serving in that war.
Yeah, everybody jumped in, and there was a ton of, I mean, the whole country, whether it was the farmers producing the wheat or the people working in steel mills, everybody got together. I've been watching a documentary about World War II. It goes into a lot of detail. And here's the other thing: is we produced enough to keep the Russians in the war. We produced enough to keep the British in the war. We basically supplied the entire Allied side. The Russians were smart; they backed off and moved their factories back where they could build and not be under pressure from bombing and shelling. But we were giving everybody weapons, and this country proved what it can do, and it can still do that. We're still the greatest country in the world. I don't care what the liberals want to say that I'm being an whatever they want to say I'm being, but this is the greatest country in the world. I had a man from Vietnam in my shop yesterday. He said he's been here for 30 years, but he grew up in Vietnam. And he said this is the greatest country in the world. He says if anyone doesn't believe it, they can go live in Vietnam. He says you can starve to death in my country. You can't starve to get death in this country. We were talking about meal portions. How, like, when I go eat, I get so irritated. They give me more food than I could possibly eat, and I feel horrible about throwing it away. He said, here, if you will work hard, you will be successful. He's a very successful man, has a lot of money. He says, why am I successful? He says, I can barely speak the language, but I was willing to work hard. He says, there's no better country with opportunities than you get right here.
There was a story I saw, and just a closing thought on that. Story I saw this week, San Jose, California does not have enough money in its budget for flood relief, so they appealed to the public and they raised $1 million. One day, a man showed up. He was a native of Vietnam. He came here at the end of the war, made a fortune in business, and he presented them with a check for $5 million. So their fund went from 1 million to 6 million because of this guy's generosity. He said this country's been good to him. He wanted to be good to this country.
Be proud. You're in the greatest country in the world. You're in one of the greatest places in this greatest country of the world. We're proud to be here. Come in by and say hi to us at the pawn shop.
All right. Want to thank Forrest Anderson. Sit again today. Todd Eccles expected to be back next week from Patriot Defense. It's 52 right now, 9:58. God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll be back as well on Monday between 8 and 10 o'clock. In the meantime, Rush Limbaugh is following the news at 10 o'clock from Fox here on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com.